Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today. Today I'm going to make an almond cake. It's very similar to a pound cake, but its main ingredient, almond paste, gives it that almond flavor. Let me go through the ingredients that I have. Flour is the first ingredient. It's 6 3/4 by weight. You could tell I weighed it. Half teaspoon of salt, teaspoon and a half of baking powder, 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil. It calls for canola oil. I don't have any, so I'm just going to use regular vegetable oil. 2 large eggs, 7 ounces almond paste. I'm going to use 2 tablespoons of butter. It's supposed to be softened. It doesn't call for pecans, but I'm going to mix some in because I like the taste of nuts. I'm just going to toast them a little bit to bring that out. And then you have slivered almonds, which you sprinkle along the top just before you bake it. The last ingredient that I'm going to add is honey. And the way that you add honey to a recipe which calls for sugar, and by the way, this original recipe with sugar, is you substitute it up to a cup of sugar, like for like. So this recipe called for 2/3 of a cup of sugar. I'm going to use 2/3 of a cup of honey. Now when you add honey to it, one of the things you have to do when you exchange those is bake at a lower temperature. This recipe is supposed to be set for 350 degrees. I'm going to take it down to 325 because honey browns and cooks a little differently than regular sugar. The other thing is, in this mixture you're supposed to have milk, and I am going to lessen the milk, which was 3/4 of a cup, by a half a cup to make amends for the water that comes in the honey recipe. So I think it's a half a cup. I'm doing that by memory, but I'll give you the ingredient list at the end of the recipe. So let me get everything sorted out here and we'll start making it in the mixer. Okay, I have everything prepped, ready to assemble. I realized that I forgot to say that you need a half teaspoon of vanilla extract, so I put that here. We're going to start by combining our dry ingredients. This is the flour. You're supposed to whisk these together. I'm just going to mix them in the bowl here. A little bit of sugar. I'm sorry, that's salt. Make sure we got it all. This is the baking powder. Just going to put it on low. They're mixed together. I'm going to add the oil. Just going to dump it in on the side. This is softened butter. Use my clean fingers, get it out of there. And here I'm just going to mix it together until they're combined. Now I'm going to add the almond paste. This is the first time I've literally ever used this product. I love the smell of this. I don't know what it is about the smell and the way that it works. It's an interesting package. It comes in a soft, pliable, almost like Play-Doh form. I finished adding my almond paste. As luck would have it, the camera conked out. I added my honey, 2/3 of a cup, to the mixture, and I mixed it to the point where it looks like a soft dough at this point. Now I'm ready to add my last remaining ingredients. I'm going to start with my 2 eggs. First thing I'm going to do is crack this egg into a container here and make sure it doesn't have any shells in it before I dump it in here. Let me get them both. 2 large eggs, room temperature. No shells, good to go. It calls for a half teaspoon of vanilla extract. And as I said before, I'm going to cut the milk back a little bit because I'm using honey. It called for a full half cup. I'm using just short of a quarter cup. I'm going to give this a mix until it's combined, and then we'll put it into our loaf pan. So I'm ready to add the last ingredients. This is a half cup of toasted pecans. A moment ago I lowered the bowl, I scraped the sides, and I let it mix in, made sure all the ingredients were well mixed. I don't want to overbeat this, so all I'm going to do is add these, mix it until they're incorporated, and then I'll be done, shut the mixer off. So let me go ahead and do that. And if I need to, I'll scrape the sides down. I think that looks pretty good. So everything's mixed. I'm ready to take my paddle out. One thing you'll notice that I took my loaf pan and sprayed it with Pam, or cooking spray, and dusted it with flour. The recipe calls for you to use a combination spray flour mixture. I don't have one, so that's just as good. Just going to get some of the excess off the paddle before I take it out. Go ahead and scrape it right into my bowl, right into my pan here. I could smell the almond oil, or the almond paste. It stands up. It seems liquidy to me. We'll see whether or not that's going to create a mess or not. I don't know if that's because I substituted, but I think I'm going to be okay. So I'll scrape the remainder of the bowl here, not leave any behind. And we're going to bake this at 325. And so the cake is done baking. I pulled it out. It has cooled off. That's really important for this step. I'm going to put some sugar on top. This is just icing sugar or powdered sugar mixed with milk and a dash of salt. It has to be cool or it will melt this. So I'm just going to drizzle this over the top. One thing about baking the cake, because I changed out honey, I lowered the temperature. It took about 12 to 15 minutes longer to cook that way. That's okay by me. It looks really good. So let me just drizzle this off. And then once it's set, you can go ahead and cut a slice and see how it came out. Just simply going to coat the top and let it drizzle down the sides. So it's all set, the glaze has set. I've cut a couple slices and I'm going to try one. I can tell you right now, one of the things I pick up immediately is that almond paste smell. I love that fresh baked sense, and I'm just going to take a bite off this corner here. Good, the outside is crispy, perfect. A little bit of nut. Good texture. I do get that almond flavor, so this is exactly what I was looking for, like an almond loaf. It's not as dense as a pound cake, but it's really flavorful. You're really going to like this, and I think it turned out really well. You could not tell that I substituted honey for sugar. So there you go. Check out the recipe and make a batch for yourself. Hope you enjoyed the video.